Good morning, this is Heather Hoffman, and I'm starting off today a short series of different ways to use alcohol ink on your cards. I'm starting off today, I'm going to use blooming peonies in a few minutes to decorate these, but I'm going to create a soft watercolor wash background by using a combination of some alcohol inks and isopropyl alcohol. I'm just using alcohol blending cardstock. This isn't Yupo paper, although that would work quite well. And I have just a little disposable container, and I've mixed into my container a little bit of that isopropyl alcohol and just a few drops of the alcohol ink, my color. This first one I'm starting with is Lemonade, and you notice it creates just a really soft wash on there. I'm using my heat gun to kind of spread it around and dry each layer just to speed things up for the video and kind of move the color around. Be careful not to get it too hot or too close. I have found that this paper is a little more sensitive and you can burn it or melt it a little bit around the edges. So I try and be kind of conservative with the heat gun and kind of keep my distance and move it around a lot. Don't hold it in one spot too long. And each time I'm building up my layers, I'm adding just a few more drops, 2 to 3 more drops of that my color, the alcohol ink color that I have there. So what it's going to do is kind of build up the color. Again, it's going to kind of mimic a little bit like a watercolor wash in my background so that I have kind of some soft layers on there. And by doing this, I can use just one color on each of my backgrounds, but get lots of depth. So for that last one, I just kind of spread the color on, but I'm going to set that aside to dry on its own instead of using my heat gun. And I'm going to move on to my next color using the exact same plan, a little bit of that isopropyl rubbing alcohol, a few drops of my color. This color is turquoise that I'm using on this one. And I love how each one ends up just a little bit different. The color moves a little different, it spreads around. And I really like this technique just for kind of layering up with one color. It's fun to mix different colors, different shades of the same color, but this is kind of a really simple and unique way just to use one color, but still get some variation and layers in it, which is kind of a fun little technique, and it makes a fun background for simple stamping, for adding. I'm especially fond of it for florals, but you can do lots of different things. But for my card today, I'm going to use some florals and then simply stamp a birthday sentiment because you can never have enough birthday cards in your stash, and I felt like my supply was getting just a little bit low. All right, and I think this is my final layer, and I'm going to do the same as I did on that yellow one. Just set it aside and let that dry naturally on its own. And I have one more color that I'm going to put together. This one is a little bit of a bolder color than the other ones. This one was Sunset Orange. And again, play with the proportions, play with the amounts. It's so fun, just the different layers and variations you can get. Some of the colors that I've done this with before, you almost end up, even though you're only using one color of alcohol ink, there's almost different shades and variations within that same color, so it almost can look like you've used more than one color, even when you've only used one. So, and if you don't want to use a heat gun, if you're worried about that and you want to speed up the layers a little bit in between, I've seen some people, you can use a straw to blow them around, or a little air puffer tool just as another option and a way to do it. So there we go. I think I've got my last. So I'm setting these aside to dry nice and thoroughly, and then I'll come back in just a minute here and we'll move on and go ahead and add the next layers on there. All right. Now I've already stamped my florals on here because I wanted to play a little with different styles of ink. That first one with the yellow, I used Gina K amalgam ink. The blue one, I used StazOn ink. And this orange one, I used VersaFine. Now, I gave some time, just a little bit of time for these to dry. I definitely recommend the StazOn ink, definitely work the best. Even when I'd left these to dry for several hours, I noticed the VersaFine still had a little bit of a smudge effect to it, as did the Gina K, just a little bit as well. And I also tried heat setting just to see if that would kind of help a little bit. But by far the most color fast and secure was definitely the StazOn ink. So I kind of wanted just to play with a few different options and kind of see which one ended up working best. And I've left them overnight now, and they're definitely better, but they're still, like I said, if your finger's a little damp or greasy, the other ones rub a little bit, but that stays on. It, just like it says, it stays on really well. So it's kind of the perfect option for finishing off on this. There you go. There's the set. Thanks so much for coming by. I hope you'll give this technique a try. Have a great day.